New video and new terrifying accounts of a plane's crash landing in Toronto.
All 80 people on board survived the ordeal. Tonight, the effort to understand what happened and get operations at Canada's busiest airport back on track. Good evening. The overturned Delta Airlines plane remains on the runway at Pearson this evening.
Investigators trying to determine what caused it to land hard, flip over, and burst into flames yesterday afternoon. This is first responders share what they encountered when they arrived on scene. CTV's Rahim Ladani begins our coverage tonight from near the crash site. Rahim.
Michelle and Natalie, good evening. This afternoon, we heard from first responders describe how they successfully got all 76 passengers and 4 crew members out of the downed aircraft, while also putting out spot fires which had erupted. Now, from where we are standing, throughout the day, we have seen a flurry of activity around the aircraft as the investigation into how this crash happened is well underway. More than a dozen investigators are combing the runway at Toronto's Pearson International Airport, taking a closer look at the piece of wing which was cut off from the CRJ 900 jet and climbing up the side of the aircraft, peering inside as they piece together what led a Delta Airlines flight arriving from Minneapolis to crash around 2:15 Monday afternoon.
They're going to be documenting the wreckage on the runway very extensively, and they're going to be certainly looking for the recorders. And I think it's extremely important to contrast what you saw in the video with what we'll find out from the digital flight data recorder.
Give everything, drop it. Come on.
The 80 people on board, including 22 Canadians, described the moments after impact as chaotic, saying they could smell the spilled jet fuel around them.
I was upside down. The lady next to me was upside down. We kind of let ourselves go and fell to hit the ceiling, which is surreal feeling.
All but 2 of the 21 passengers who were taken to hospital have since been released. Their injuries ranging from minor to critical, but none considered life-threatening.
Back sprains, head injuries, anxiety, some headaches, nausea and vomiting due to the fuel.
Clear to land, 23, Endeavour, 4890.
Audio from air traffic control indicates the flight was cleared to land. A short time later, it crashed.
This airplane just crashed in 23. Yeah, we've got it. The aircraft is upside down and burning.
The emergency response is being categorized as textbook, with crews quickly knocking down flames using a special combination of water, foam, and dry chemical.
We had 6 apparatus from Mississauga Fire respond. It was a combination of aerials, engines, and squads.
Data from Environment Canada reveals winds were gusting up to 65 kilometers per hour at the time of the crash. On Monday, Pearson's fire chief said the runway was dry and there were no crosswind conditions. However, on Tuesday, he declined to confirm that statement.
Very early to make any conclusions. I know I provided a little bit of information yesterday for transparency. Today, now we have an active investigation.
Canada's Transportation Safety Board is leading the investigation with help from its U.S. counterpart, Delta Airlines, and Mitsubishi, the maker of the aircraft.
We've already removed the cockpit voice recorder, the flight data recorder, and we've sent them to our lab for further analysis.
The plane is expected to remain on the runway until Thursday before being removed. Now, after the aircraft is removed, officials tell us that the 2 runways which are currently closed will be inspected before they are reopened for departures and landings. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladani. Natalie, I'll send it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Rahim.
Everything, drop it. Come on.
You heard in Rahim's report one passenger describing the chaos on board the aircraft as it crashed and the moments that followed. Tonight, we are hearing more firsthand accounts of the heart-stopping ordeal for the people on the plane. CTV's Mike Walker joins us live now with that story. Mike.
Well, Natalie, passengers we spoke with say it's a miracle that everyone survived as they recalled the horrifying crash and the moments after where crew and passengers worked together to evacuate the plane.
Everything, drop it.
Peter Kukoff captured the chaotic scene as he crawled out of the Delta Airlines plane moments after it crashed and flipped over on the runway. Holy leaving all 80 people on board dangling upside down, secured by their seatbelts.
So people were hanging there for, I can't remember how long, but just about a minute. And then they were like, okay, like, get down. And at that point, people were feeling pretty frantic.
Kukoff says he had no idea something was wrong until the plane hit the ground.
I just remember being fully sideways, and I was looking down and just seeing like sparks and flames and whatever was grinding against the ground.
Passengers immediately posting to social media as the burning aircraft was evacuated.
I was just in a plane crash.
Our plane crashed.
Sharing their stories of survival with the world, and today are trying to come to terms with what happened.
It's a really miracle.
Father Joe Bernales is from the Philippines and was on his way to visit family in the GTA.
For me, it was really a hard touchdown. When the plane stopped, everything is in chaos. But good thing that there's still humanity, that all of us are you good? Are you good?
John Nelson recalling the moments passengers and crew members worked together to help each other get out of the burning plane.
So we released the seatbelts that kind of fell to the floor, which is now the ceiling, and helped the lady next to me get out of her seatbelt. And then you heard the flight attendants yelling, "Open the door, everybody take your stuff." We all worked together and got out of there as quickly as we could because we could smell fuel.
Even in that chaos, passengers describing a sense of calm.
It was seemed pretty organized. Everyone got off in a pretty orderly fashion. It didn't seem too insane once the plane had stopped and everyone realized for the most part they were okay.
Other passengers we spoke with today tell us they are making arrangements with the airlines to return home. Some, in fact, traveling back to the U.S. today, while others spent the day being assessed by doctors. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Natalie, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. 2 runways at Pearson Airport are expected to remain closed until Thursday while the investigation continues.
And as you can imagine, those closures are having a big impact on both arrivals and departures from an airport still dealing with disruptions from 2 storms and continued wintry weather. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us live with the latest on efforts to clear the backlog and the ongoing impact on air travelers tonight. Beth.
Michelle, what has really happened here at Pearson is a domino effect of delays. First came the snow, then came the plane crash. Days of delays on top of more delays is the reality at Toronto Pearson International. For passengers, it's a test of patience.
Canceled completely, so you have to find someplace to stay and you have to find someplace to, spend the night, but you don't even know how long you're going to be.
The airport was already dealing with a backlog of flights from 2 major snowstorms within days when the Delta plane crashed. Monday was supposed to be a recovery day for flight operations. Instead, runways were shut down.
Eventually, it got delayed multiple times and then it got canceled eventually. And we stayed in the airport for the whole night.
2 runways still remain closed for the investigation. The Greater Toronto Airports Authority expects the plane will stay in place for another 2 days, which means flight disruptions will continue.
And so until that time, 2 of our runways will remain closed, and that is affecting the volume of traffic that we're having.
Travelers, by and large, at Pearson have been understanding, given safety and complications from such a serious crash, but are eager to get back on schedule. Whether for a missed connection,
tough, rough situation, but then the Air Canada has helped me out a lot with the reschedule as well. But the current situation in Pearson Airport it's tough right now.
Or an important trip.
We're about 5.5 hours delayed. This is our 3rd delay notification. The 3rd one for the extra 2 hours came as we were already in the car.
We are here very much at the airport to support and provide passenger care for people that might find themselves here at their airport and have their flights disrupted.
The GTAA says between Thursday and Sunday, hundreds of flights were canceled as Pearson coped with more than 50 centimeters of snow. After the crash Monday, another 462 flights were canceled. Air Canada says close to 1,300 of its flights were canceled in the past 6 days. The airline says service is resuming and it's adding flights and capacity where possible. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. And our coverage continues online. We have live updates as well as more passenger accounts and photos of the crash at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
And still to come on CTV News, the big dig continues, shoveling out a city still buried beneath so much snow. We'll have the latest on the very cold cleanup just ahead.
But first, a live look outside on what has been another wintry day, marked by more snow and gusty winds, not to mention the frigid temperatures. Let's bring in Lindsay Morrison with a look at what's happening weather-wise this evening. And there was a travel advisory, but that's been canceled, Lindsay.
It has just come to an end, Michelle, not for everyone, but for the city of Toronto. We're now seeing this classic snow squall drift a little bit further to the east. So if you're joining us from, say, Stouffville over toward Oshawa, you're feeling the effects of this. And there's a secondary squall impacting areas from Barrie to Keswick over toward Uxbridge and Port Perry. There are weather advisories in place, including that winter weather travel advisory still in place from Pickering over to Oshawa. Winds today have been coming out of the west and the northwest, gusting upwards of 50 kilometers per hour here in the city of Toronto. Not only is that ushering in lake effect snow and causing blowing snow conditions, but it's cold out there. In fact, right now it feels like minus 20 once you take those winds into consideration. The winds are going to settle down tonight. We'll actually see an improvement with the wind chill overnight, but our forecast low is expected to be somewhere around minus 14, minus 15 degrees. So bundle up if you're heading out tonight or early tomorrow morning. Lots to talk about in your weather forecast. It's all coming up. But for now, Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. And sticking with the weather, we turn to the latest in the massive effort to uncover a city buried under so much snow.
Frustration mounting along with the snow over clogged streets and sidewalks, and more flurries flying tonight. CTV's Allison Hurst is live near Victoria Park in Danforth tonight with the latest on what feels like an uphill battle. Allison.
Lots of snow that still needs to be removed. You can see by the piles in the snowbanks here behind me. And of course, this is just one very small section of one parking lot across the city. Cleanup efforts are underway.
It's pretty packed and icy now. Yeah, so we're just chipping away at it slowly.
Cutting through thick ice and snow to make way for garbage collection.
We're just clearing out paths so they can bring the bins through. So yeah.
Big job.
We have a few cutouts to do. So yeah, it'll keep us busy.
But the job of actually collecting the trash.
It's terrible. It's really tricky today.
And taking a lot longer than normal.
Yeah, we got to go over the snowbanks, bring the bins over, usually just roll them in, and 5 seconds we're done. Now it takes forever, and I can't go in between each car either, so it is what it is. Winter in Canada, right?
This winter blast packed a punch. A snow pile has been pushed right through the bus shelter at Lawrence and the Donway West that still needs to be fixed. Cars remain buried and blocked by snowbanks in East York, with many residents continuing to dig out. And sidewalks are treacherous.
We can't even notice where the sidewalks are. I was walking through the road.
I cannot walk properly. Sometimes I fall down. And this is very hard for me to walk.
It's tricky trying to keep your balance and stay upright with the snow not being swept or shoveled or anything.
For those having their first big snowfall,
it's fun. Me and my 4-year-old were enjoying. Yeah, it's more of an experience for us.
But one he doesn't necessarily want to have last that much longer. And we did see several dump trucks full of snow rolling through the city. City officials have confirmed to us that in select locations, snow removal has begun and began on Friday. This is for things like emergency vehicles and public transit, while the widespread snow removal begins tomorrow. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Allison. A pedestrian was taken to hospital today after being hit by a vehicle in Oshawa. The crash happened on Harmony Road North between Rosslyn Road and Story Avenue shortly before 11 this morning. Police say the pedestrian was rushed to a trauma center in serious condition. The SUV remained on scene. There's no word yet if the driver will be facing charges.
Police in York Region have released a video of a weekend arson attack on 2 homes under construction. You can see an SUV arriving in a new build residential area of King Township around 6:30 Saturday morning. 2 men in the vehicle were seen approaching the homes with jerry cans and setting them on fire. Police believe it was a targeted incident and are asking anyone who may have information to contact them. The suspects were wearing all black clothing and black face masks. They fled the scene and remain at large. The suspect vehicle is a gray 2021 to 2024 Dodge Durango, possibly an SRT model.
To the latest from the Ontario provincial election campaign.
Fresh off the leaders' debate, strategies to influence voters appear to be shifting, leading up to Election Day next Thursday. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris explains.
It was a seed planted by Bonnie Crombie in the final moments of Monday's leaders' debate.
I'm asking those of you who voted NDP in the last election to vote Liberal.
An outreach punctuated the next morning with an event in Hamilton.
I'm reaching out today to NDP voters.
Crombie insists the Liberals are the only party with a credible plan, the only option for voters who want to change.
They'll choose me because they want a family doctor. They want lower wait times in their hospitals, and they want to live more affordably.
The leader of the New Democrats thinks it's a revealing moment.
I mean, that just tells you everything you need to know about that party, where they're at, right? Their path is they're just trying to make party status.
When the legislature was dissolved, the Liberals didn't have the 12 seats required to be considered an official party. They're polling a distant second to Progressive Conservatives, with the NDP in third.
I'm not messing around. I want to flip Conservative ridings to NDP orange.
Stiles is also trying to protect seats from flipping the other way in Hamilton, Niagara, and the North. She's now fending off new attacks from the right, dubbing her party radical.
Meet Marit Stiles and the NDP. Her candidates want to defund the police.
To me, it's just classic, and it's a bit petty, but I think maybe he's a little rattled after last night.
In the debate, Doug Ford tried to stick to what he has framed the election around.
It's who do you believe is going to protect your family, protect your businesses, protect jobs, and protect your community.
The PC leader out of sight today. His plans to fly to Sault Ste. Marie on hold after a crash at Pearson Airport.
Thank you for the last-minute pivot.
Mike Schreiner's campaigning pushed online by whiteout conditions in Flesherton, pitching the Greens' energy plan.
We would remove the HST off of affordable alternative energy options for people.
The Liberal leader's been taking heat for past offensive social media posts from a handful of candidates. Comments joking about sexual consent, women's bodies, the LGBTQ and Sikh communities. Bonnie Crombie has asked for apologies for those comments.
I don't stand for them. They don't reflect who I am. I don't think they reflect the values of the Ontario Liberal Party.
But she isn't removing any candidates. Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
The economy is always an important issue for voters, and today we learned Canada's annual inflation rate ticked back up in January. It was 1.9% last month, up from 1.8% in December. Gas prices were a factor. They rose 8.6% in January compared with a year ago. Restaurant prices declined by a record 5.1% from the same period in 2024. Economists are now more confident the Bank of Canada might pause its interest rate cuts next month.
In the Middle East, Israel and Hamas will reportedly begin indirect negotiations on a second stage of the Gaza ceasefire deal. Talks were supposed to start on February 4th, but mediators say the negotiations have not officially started yet. Israel's foreign minister says they will begin this week. The second stage of the three-phased truce includes the release of the remaining 64 hostages being held by Hamas. The group says the bodies of 4 hostages will be returned on Thursday. 6 others who are still alive will be freed on Saturday.
In southern Lebanon, Israeli soldiers have withdrawn from most of the area in accordance with a U.S.-backed ceasefire. Residents returned to devastated villages today. Israel says it will temporarily remain in 5 places needed for its security. Hezbollah says Israeli forces are still occupying Lebanese territory and put the onus on the Lebanese government to get them out. The conflict that began last year displaced more than 1 million people in Lebanon and tens of thousands of people from northern Israel.
The U.S. has agreed to hold more talks with Russia on ending the war in Ukraine. Officials from the 2 countries were in Saudi Arabia today for a meeting that excluded Ukraine. CTV's Joy Malbin reports.
Overnight, Russia launched dozens of drones into Ukraine, striking its capital. It will be 3 years next week since Russia invaded its neighbor, seizing territory and destroying thousands of lives. Top diplomats from Washington and Moscow met face-to-face in a Saudi Arabian palace, discussing ways to end this war.
There has to be concessions made by all sides. We're not going to predetermine what those are. We're certainly not going to negotiate this today.
Notably absent from these high-stakes talks, the Europeans and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. No one decides anything behind our back, says Zelensky, canceling his scheduled meeting with the Saudis, and in spite of assurances from Washington.
The facts will continue to push back on this notion that our allies haven't been consulted. They are being consulted literally almost on a daily basis.
For Vladimir Putin, this is already a win. Reestablishing diplomatic relations with Washington puts Russia back on the world stage. But already Russia is laying down markers, rejecting any European peacekeepers in Ukraine, calling that unacceptable. Washington and Moscow did agree to create teams to support Ukraine peace talks, restore staffing at U.S. and Russian embassies, and explore closer relations and economic opportunities.
No one else has been able to bring something together like what we saw today because Donald Trump is the only leader in the world that can.
Washington is convinced Russia is serious about negotiations to end the war. The big question now, when will President Donald Trump and Putin meet? Joy Malbin, CTV News, Washington.
Canada is among a number of countries reportedly invited to a second meeting hosted by France to discuss Ukraine and European security tomorrow. Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly says she wants Canada to play a role in Ukraine's security after the war with Russia ends.
We've had conversations with European allies at the EU. I've had conversations also in France. I've met with many European colleagues. And we've said we want to be part of these conversations regarding security guarantees. We've want to be part of conversations linked to more Canadians being involved in protecting Ukraine. And we want to be part of conversations about the future of the Euro-Atlantic relationship.
Joly says Canada continues to ask the U.S. to include Ukraine after Washington suggested the country will lose territory and cannot be part of NATO.
There was an update today on the Pope's health, and doctors are now treating him for double pneumonia. Bilateral pneumonia is an infection that can inflame both lungs and makes breathing more difficult. The Vatican says the pontiff will require further pharmacological therapy. He has been suffering from a respiratory infection for more than a week and was admitted to hospital on Friday. Officials say Pope Francis remains in good spirits. All of his public engagements have been canceled through Sunday. Turning to a major sports story we're monitoring here at home, the uncertain future of one of the Blue Jays' biggest stars.
The team failed to reach an extension agreement with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. before the Star Slugger's self-imposed deadline. CTV's Sean Leithong joins us live now with what that could mean. Sean.
Well, Natalie and Michelle, the contract extension talks went right down to the deadline, that deadline being that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. didn't want to have his contract going into the first full day of training camp. That day of training camp happened today, and there was no contract.
Spring training for the Blue Jays begins on a sour note, with the team failing to sign Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to a contract extension by the start of camp. The first baseman has said he'll test free agency after the season.
I mean, we never got to that point where I feel like I wanted to do the deal.
Guerrero's saying the two sides were never really close, with Jays management refusing to talk details.
There really aren't degrees of getting it done or not getting it done. It's either a done deal or not a done deal. And so the bottom line result is here, we're disappointed that we couldn't get a deal done.
Not close enough, in order to reach an agreement.
Guerrero was signed by the Blue Jays as a teenager and came up through the organization, becoming an all-star and nearly winning the American League MVP a few short years ago. Now the team risks losing homegrown talent.
And we know teams like the Mets or the Cubs or the Yankees, there's going to be a lot of teams that would outspend the Blue Jays to try and woo Vladimir to their roster.
And while the deadline imposed by Guerrero has passed,
I don't want, especially my teammates, to go through any distractions, about that.
Jays president Mark Shapiro says they will leave the door open to a player they want to keep.
You think about players like Derek Jeter, Cal Ripken Jr., Kirby Puckett, and what it can mean to be a legacy player, a franchise player, and that was and is our hope for Vladdy.
But Matt Cause from TSN says while the Jays have to come up with the money, they also have to prove that they can win in the near future, or else the next deadline to look at will be the MLB trade deadline.
If by then there's no indication that Vlad is interested, or if the Jays are losing again, Toronto has no choice but to trade him. Otherwise, they're going to end up like the Anaheim Angels that saw Shohei Ohtani walk for absolutely nothing.
Now, there is some frustration from Blue Jays fans because it was quite public that the team was trying to sign all-stars like Shohei Ohtani and Juan Soto, players that eventually went to teams for contracts north of $700 million. So the question was, how could they not sign Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? Ross Atkins only said that the contract they were offering was the richest in club history. Reporting live, I'm Sean Neathong. Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. Coming up, Kim's Convenience takes center stage. Toronto's beloved hit show makes a comeback nearly 2 decades after it first charmed audiences. Our Andrea Case has the story. Still ahead.
I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, about half of all Canadians have some form of hearing loss. If you need to purchase hearing aids, they can be expensive, but you may already own something that can help you hear much better. I'll have that story. That's just ahead.
Now, I know you don't need me to tell you that we've had a lot of snow this season, but this might put things into perspective. So as of Sunday, Toronto has picked up 119 centimeters of snow. That's twice as much snow as we had all last winter. And yes, it is only mid-February. We've already added to this total yesterday and today. Couple more centimeters possible in some areas tonight. And over the next couple of days, maybe a trace to 2 centimeters locally in Toronto. And then some more lake effect snow expected to be added for areas to our north and to our west. The big story for us over the next couple of days, the cold. Not going to be a whole lot of melting. We'll show you just how chilly it could be coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
According to Statistics Canada, approximately 60% of Canadians suffer from some form of hearing loss, and if it's serious enough, you might require a hearing aid.
Hearing aids can be very expensive, but the technology in everyday earbuds could help you hear for a lot less cost. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert.
You see them in people's ears almost everywhere you go. Apple's AirPods. Most people use them to listen to music and podcasts or to make phone calls, but more people are using the AirPod Pros as an alternative to traditional hearing aids.
Millions of people live with hearing loss. Toby Stanger, who used to work at Consumer Reports, is one of them.
I've probably had hearing loss for several years, but it was only during the pandemic when it really began to affect me and affect the people around me.
If that sounds familiar, there might be something already in your pocket that could help. Apple's AirPods Pro 2 now offer hearing assistance for people with mild to moderate hearing loss.
You can find a clinical-grade hearing test right on your phone, either in the settings or in the health app, and in just a few minutes you can find out if you need help from a hearing aid.
If you do, the hearing aid feature customizes your AirPods by boosting or lowering the volume at specific frequencies based on your needs. It can also help protect your hearing in loud places like concerts by reducing the sound to a safe level.
My husband complains that I like the sound much louder when we're watching TV. So in order to appease him, I put the AirPods in my ears when we're watching TV, and they really do help. In fact, I realized when I put them in that I had my own hearing aids set too low.
If you find you need even more hearing support, some hearing aids can now be purchased without a prescription, and they cost far less than prescription models. When it comes to over-the-counter hearing aids, it's important to know there are 2 main kinds, preset and self-fitting.
Preset OTCs are more affordable, and they're generally simpler to set up and use. You can just stick them in your ear and go. But some are so simple that they offer little more than basic volume control.
Researchers at Consumer Reports gave top marks to models from Lexi and Jabra brands. If you're interested in the Apple AirPods Pro 2, they sell for about $300.
Rechargeable hearing aids generally last a day or 2 on a single charge. Those with replaceable batteries last about a week. Fully charged AirPods will give you about 6 hours of use. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
We saw some flurries flying this afternoon after all that snow this weekend. I know we're looking at a couple centimeters maybe across the region, and it certainly feels like a drop in the ocean compared to what's on the ground right now.
We don't need any more snow, though, and I think the wind, that snow, I mean, a lot of it's locked in because it's so cold out there, but the blowing snow can still affect visibility.
It's true, and blowing snow has been an issue all day long today, in addition to snow squalls, so that's where the snow is actually falling from the sky. But the blowing snow is where that snow on the ground gets picked up, blown around, reducing visibility, causing whiteouts in some cases. That certainly happened last night and into today for areas north of Toronto. Take a look at this. Around Barrie in the Springwater area, the visibility was so bad that many roads had to be closed, and in fact, drivers had to be taken out of their cars, off the roads, and into warming centers for the nighttime hours. Today, areas like Highway 400 impacted, the 404 as well, and we've seen some heavy snow around parts of the 401, even downtown Toronto a little bit earlier today as well. Now, another part of the story is the cold. That snow is not melting anytime soon. There is a bit of a pattern change that's going to happen as we make our way into this weekend, or perhaps more specifically next week. So there's your tease. Stay tuned for the 7-day forecast and we'll talk about that. But right now it is not warm by any means. It feels like minus 20 out there. The core temperature in Toronto is minus 10 degrees, and we're expecting to drop to around minus 14, minus 15 degrees tonight. So seasonal this time of year is now 0. We were well below that today. Temperature hovering around minus 6 at its warmest. Tonight, as mentioned, some communities are going to experience wind chills, in fact, around minus 30. For Bancroft, for example, minus 26 in Parry Sound. A chilly start to the day tomorrow. Make sure you're dressed for it. But we are going to experience some sunshine. That's the upside to tomorrow morning's forecast. And then eventually the temperature climbs to around minus 7 for the high. Again, colder than normal for this time of year. And in some cases, active weather is set to continue too. So this is what it looks like on the satellite and radar. A classic squall extending from the north end of Lake Huron all the way to Lake Ontario and into New York State as well. We're still seeing parts of York region impacted by this, as well as Durham region. You remain under a winter weather travel advisory. It's not showing up on this particular map, but I do want to mention that it's there. And then also not quite showing up here, there is also a snow squall warning in place for areas like Uxbridge, over toward Keswick and the city of Barrie. These are the classic snow belt areas that will continue to see accumulating snow over the next few days too. So this is going to ease up. The squall is going to break down overnight tonight. Everything settles down as far as the winds are concerned, and there's our sunshine that we're waking up to tomorrow morning around the Golden Horseshoe. Yes, some cloud cover is going to increase, and Thursday is a mostly cloudy day with the potential for some pop-up flurries once again, so just be aware of that. Friday, this is when we start to experience a little bit of a change as far as the temperature story is concerned. Up around minus 4 degrees. Saturday, it's about minus 3 for the high. Mix of sun and cloud, chance of flurries really throughout the next 7. But look what happens into Sunday. We're closer to seasonal. Monday, Tuesday, we might climb above the freezing mark. So that would be good to allow for some melting to begin. But once again, we've got the chance of some flurries or maybe even some more accumulating snow in the forecast. We'll keep an eye on that. That's the weather for now. Natalie, over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Still ahead on CTV News, artificial intelligence sounds the alarm on setbacks after surgery. The trial technology that could prevent costly complications. That's after the break.
Doctors at Hamilton Health Sciences are tapping into the power of artificial intelligence.
They are using the technology to find new ways to protect patients from life-threatening complications after surgery. We get the details from CTV's health reporter, Pauline Chan.
When patients undergo abdominal surgery, a significant percentage experience life-threatening leaks despite advances in medical techniques.
It could be pancreatic surgeries or bowel surgeries or colorectal surgeries. Typically, these patients will have a type of anastomosis, which is a junction between two hollow organs. For example, the bowel to the bowel to the colon, or the pancreas to the bowel.
Hamilton Health Sciences is among a group of international hospitals that's been testing a new device on more than 300 of these patients, the vast majority of them cancer patients.
There's still a large proportion of patients, and that depends on the type of surgery, that have a leak. For example, pancreatic surgery, about 20 to 25% of our patients will have a significant or a clinically relevant pancreatic leak. And about those that have that leak, 20% of them will die.
This fluid AI device being tested detects leaks within the abdomen within a day or two, while ordinarily they might not be detected for 5 days. The leaks are dangerous because the enzymes produced by, say, the pancreas are meant for digestion of the foods we eat.
So you could imagine like these pancreatic enzymes are activated because of the enteric contents that are there, and it's digesting our organs from the inside out. That causes infections, that causes bleeding, and significant morbidity for the patients.
Earlier detection means better drainage can be enacted, antibiotics can be given to prevent infections, or in more severe cases, surgery may be needed. It can also mean patients can go home earlier if no leaks are detected. The hospital estimates this fluid AI device could save hundreds of thousands of dollars by reducing hospital stays and preventing costly complications. They hope to wrap up a second round of trials this year. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
What has been described as Canada's most successful musical ever will end its Toronto run in May. Mirvish Productions has ordered a final extension of Come From Away. The hit musical is based on the story of Newfoundlanders who helped thousands of passengers diverted to a small-town airport when the 9/11 attacks grounded air traffic. Come From Away began its latest run in Toronto in September.
Long before the groundbreaking TV show Kim's Convenience hit the airwaves, it was a play. And now that play is back on stage at Soul Pepper Theatre for an extended run. As
CTV's Andrea Case reports, 20 years later, its creator is returning to the show in a new role.
What is my story? What is the story of me, Mr. Kim?
Ince Choi has come home. The writer, co-creator, and star of the play Kim's Convenience had no idea when it was first mounted 14 years ago.
This story is my story.
It would still be playing.
The first time we had an audience was at the Fringe Festival, and it was scary. Hearing giggles or hearing that response, it was like, oh, I think it's working.
5 years earlier, the York University theatre graduate was tasked by what was then the first Asian Canadian theatre group to write what he knew.
I've never seen an Asian family on stage. I've never seen this before. To be in the audience and looking up and seeing someone who kind of looks like you on stage.
He played the son of a Korean family running a convenience store in the Moss Park neighborhood in Toronto. Eventually, it went on to tour the country.
Appa, come see, huh? Janet gets top mark in class.
Oh, very good. We celebrate by you taking out garbage.
I didn't want to do it at first, actually, because I didn't know anything about TV. I never had dreams of making a TV show or writing for TV. So it was like all new, and it was like, oh, I don't know. I'd rather just have a good show, a good play, than a bad TV show.
It turned out it was a good show, running for 5 seasons. During the 2023 writer's strike, the Grand Theatre in London, Ontario asked for the play to be revived. It was a success and then ran in the UK.
I don't know why I'm here. I'm just kind of on a journey of, I don't know, tumbling through life.
The stumble has brought the award-winning playwright full circle. Once the son, he's now playing the role of Appa, the father.
I just think of my kids and that next generation who gets to see Asians on stages.
Something Choi not only did for his own children, but a generation of actors following him. Andrea Case, CTV News.
Taylor Swift has been named Global Recording Artist of the Year for 2024.
Oh, Toronto, we are so back!
It was a big year, and it's the 5th time Swift has won the honor from the IFPI, the organization that represents the recording music industry. The prize is calculated by looking at an artist's worldwide sales. In addition to their entire work, Toronto rapper Drake and K-pop group 17 came in 2nd and 3rd, respectively.
Still ahead on CTV News, financial fallout for Delta Airlines in the wake of yesterday's crash. We'll bring you the breakdown in business just ahead.
Safe shoveling tips. Tomorrow on CP24 Breakfast. Get simple tricks to ease back strain. And the signs it's time to take a break. CP24 Breakfast, where Toronto gets its everything every morning.
We had 6 apparatus from Mississauga Fire respond. It was a combination of aerials, engines, and squads.
Updating our top stories, investigators have recovered the data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder from the Delta jet that landed hard and flipped at Pearson Airport yesterday. They're trying to determine what happened. There were no life-threatening injuries among the 21 people who were hurt. And take a look at this. New video has just emerged of the harrowing moments after the crash. It shows passengers hanging from their seats after the flight crash landed and overturned. A passenger shared the video from inside the plane, as well as footage of passengers crawling out of the flight. Canada's Transportation Safety Board is leading this investigation with help from its U.S. counterpart, Delta Airlines and Mitsubishi. The plane is expected to remain on that runway until Thursday before being removed.
It's pretty packed and icy now, so we're just chipping away at it slowly.
Toronto continues to dig out after that big winter storm. Some vehicles remain blocked and sidewalks in some areas are still treacherous. Snow collection in select areas started on Friday. Widespread snow removal will be phased in beginning tomorrow.
I mean, we never got to that point where I feel like I wanted to do the deal.
Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Blue Jays failed to reach a contract extension before his self-imposed deadline last night. But the slugger says he will leave the door open to any realistic offer from the team. He will be a free agent after this season.
Remember to keep up to date day and night at ctvnewstoronto.ca and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video of breaking news, let us know.
Anxious investors aren't waiting for answers. They are selling Delta stock after the plane crash in Toronto yesterday. BNN Bloomberg's Morella Fernandez has the latest in business.
Delta stock tumbled today after one of the airline's jets crashed at Toronto's Pearson International Airport on Monday. The plane landed upside down. All 80 people on board survived, but many were injured. Investigators are on scene today examining the wreckage still on the tarmac. No cause for the crash has yet been determined, but nervous investors are selling, with Delta stock dropping more than 1.5% today. Inflation ticked up in January, ringing in at 1.9%. It was 1.8% in December. Now it's still within the Bank of Canada's target rate. Gas and natural gas are being blamed for the bump, which offset that GST break. In Manitoba, the year-over-year price at the pump jumped by almost 26% because a provincial gas tax was reintroduced. And year-over-year food prices dropped in January for the first time since 2017. And the Trump tariff threat is apparently rippling through the Canadian real estate market. From December to January, sales fell 3.3%. It's a buyer's market right now, with an 11% jump in January in for-sale listings. It's the biggest month-to-month jump in new supply since the late 1980s, excluding the pandemic. The Canadian dollar ends the day down a fraction at almost 70.5 cents U.S. West Texas Intermediate is up $1.12 at 71.83. According to our latest fix on Western Canadian Select, it's down by $1.05 at 56.70. And the TSX is up 165 points to almost 25,649. Those are your business headlines from the BNN Bloomberg Newsroom. I'm Morella Fernandez.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Canadian hockey fans are getting the final they were hoping for at the Four Nations face-off. Team Canada will be looking to best their bitter rival, Team USA, and redeem themselves after losing in their brawl-filled previous matchup.
We came here for this purpose, and now it's win one more game. It just happens to be against the team that beat us after the fireworks that went off on Saturday night. So I think it should be a pretty good made-for-TV event.
Canada punched its ticket to the final after yesterday's 5-3 win over Finland to set up the championship match. Game time is 8 p.m. Eastern this Thursday.
Tonight, inflation edges back up.
South of 2%, which is what you want, but the thing about the GST holiday, it's probably distorting some of the data.
Plus, the underlying economic threat that could be crippling for Canadian consumers. Later on CTV National News.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight. And a special shout out to those of you listening to the newscast live on News Talk 1010.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Well, as the cleanup continues from the latest dose of winter, there still is some wintry stuff happening with the wind and the snow, and it's still not fun out there.
Snow squalls, I heard you say, Lindsay. Say it ain't so.
Oh, it is so. In fact, we're still dealing with this squall that's right over the city of Toronto. We're going to show it to you one more time. It is going to drift a little bit further to the east. We're hanging on to the potential for some maybe accumulation, maybe a trace to 2 centimeters through the night tonight. Here's a look at some of the advisories that remain in place, including a winter weather travel advisory east of Toronto and snow squalls to the north. It's cold right now. It feels like minus 20 out there if you have to venture out this evening. Bundle up. Tomorrow brings some improvement. The winds won't be nearly as strong as they were today. And we'll have some sunshine, but the chance of flurries continues all week long. Warmer air by the weekend. Natalie and Michelle.
Well, that is good to hear. Thanks, Lindsay. And that's it for us, but you can join Omar Sesjadina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zarada Alwyn with your next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thanks for watching. Have a great night.